Hi, everybody. For the purpose of anonymity, we will be referring to my interviewee as Mary Smith, a lovely common name that's easy for me to remember throughout this report. Um, just wanted to take an opportunity and give you a little bit of a background of Mary so we can set the scene and perhaps explain a little bit of the reason why I selected her as my interviewee. Um, she is a true Kenzo, hailing from the mean streets of Kensington, which is hilarious if you knew her. She just doesn't fit the mold. Um, she lived in a very tiny row home with her parents, siblings, grandparents, and at times other extended family members, with one bathroom. One bathroom in the house. Just one. Her blue-collar family frequented every museum Philly and other surrounding cities had to offer, which sparked a love of learning and exploration and just a desire to see what else is out there for her to discover. She walked the straight line, drawn by her strict parents. She did have the fear of God in her. She studied very hard up through college and became a successful teacher. She fell in love and married her first love. We will call him Jack Smith, because that's also easy to remember. They raised 3 beautiful children and just truly lived a fun, fruitful life together. However, her life was not free from tragedy. After the birth of her first 2 sons, she gave birth to what is known as a blue baby, and that's a baby that is born with a certain cardiac condition. The baby boy lived for 1 month at CHOP, which is Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, where his little heart just stopped forever, and Mary had to say goodbye. After much recovery and growth, and leading support groups and forming new groups and trying to help other parents in her situation, they gave birth to a baby girl. In her mid-50s, Mary was diagnosed with cancer and underwent surgery to remove an enormous tumor from her abdomen, and then again a few weeks later from her brain. Lots of therapy, lots of time in the hospital. Future unknowing. She survived, and she is currently still cancer-free. After the cancer scare, she did a lot of soul searching. She went back to school for more degrees, and she switched her career path probably about 3 times. Not being the breadwinner in the family allowed her to make as many changes as she saw fit, and she was completely supported by her husband, Jack. Her next bump came when she discovered her middle son had a horrible drug addiction, and she and the family had to rally together to figure out his best course of treatment, which ended up being an in-care patient facility. Excuse me. He's doing well, but still struggles to this day, so that's just something else that she has to deal with on a regular basis. Her latest challenge was the diagnosis of her husband's terminal liver cancer and the transition into the home for end-of-life care or palliative care. She's truly an amazing person, and her resilience and thirst for knowledge is just inspiring. Nothing gets her down. Nothing breaks her. She still has feelings, but I mean, she's just an inspiration. So now on to the project. That is why I selected her. Okie doke. My older adult oral video presentation by Erin A. Troy for Social Work 501. I went with stage 8, which is integrity versus despair, or old age. Or not old age, but well, we'll go over that. To avoid an overwhelming sense of despair, one must achieve a certain sense of integrity and be satisfied with an inventory of their life's accomplishments. This stage begins at 65, which has been identified as the beginning of the final stage of living, ending with our eventual demise. Accepting this as the final stage will also help keep those feelings of despair at bay. At this point, Mary continues to maintain her cancer-free status by taking medications and getting regular scans. Her husband was diagnosed with terminal cancer in his liver. She had to put her son in an inpatient drug treatment center, and she decided to return to school for her doctorate. Mary is faced with the task of facilitating her husband's end-of-life hospice care, as well as having to plan for his funeral. She does this while maintaining her own physical health so that her own cancer does not return. Studying for your doctorate while being your family's all-around care facilitator is exhausting, but she still managed to remain in the program and is hoping to finish this coming May. Most people in Mary's shoes would take an inventory of their life and would be content because their life was productive and meaningful. Mary is never content. She struggles with an itchy feeling that there is more she should or could do. She carries a bit of stage 7 with her into stage 8. She tends to get a feeling of fear of being inactive or that her life will lack meaning. I wouldn't exactly say they have money coming out of their ears, but at this point in the game, I would say she has way more resources available to her than she did in her tiny little row home at Kensington. Her husband definitely sets no limits for her and truly wants her to be happy and feel fulfilled, which I think he also knows is not really a possibility for Mary at this point in her life, or possibly ever. Okay, getting back to the project. Fortunately, Mary has the world at her fingertips with endless resources and plenty of support from her friends and her community. So socially, I would say Mary is in a very good position to succeed. Psychologically, she knows she will have to bury her husband in the very near future, so at times is challenged by bouts of depression and or anxiety. Biologically, her own health could turn on her and the cancer could return. So the amount of time, effort, and medication needed poses a bit of a challenge that she seems to have no problem dealing with. So she should not be prevented from moving forward with her latest goals. The only way I could imagine that Mary would have to deal with any type of oppression in her world would be in her workplace. As a woman, sometimes it is difficult for her to be heard or to be taken seriously by or in her male-dominated department. Mary strikes me as a very driven enough person to overcome this challenge. Okay, the multi-lens. On the micro level, Mary is under a great deal of stress that makes focusing on her schoolwork difficult at times. To improve her daily life, her doctor prescribed mild medications to lessen her depression and her anxiety level. On the meso level, Mary's family environment provides positives and negatives. Though they support her goals, they are currently in crisis and require a lot of time and attention that can be taken away from her efforts put towards her degree. On a macro level, Mary has access to the best of basically everything life has to offer, and she also lives in a safe and pleasant neighborhood. I would say this lens carries her to her finish line when the going gets tough. Okay, the other theory, I decided to go with Piaget's formal operational stage. This is the stage where we develop the skills to take in information and adapt it to our lives, or we decide we have to adapt our lives to the information. Mary's vision of her life changes on a regular basis. She is never satisfied, and therefore new goals to give her life more meaning pop up all the time. This stage has allowed her to take in information that could derail her plans, and it helps her decide if she can work with the current plan or helps her decide how to alter her plans around the information. She will never abandon a plan altogether, so these skills are very important for her life.
How do I say goodbye to what we had? The good time that made us laugh, are we back? I thought we get to see forever, but forever is gone now. It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday.
In talking with Mary, she's preparing for the end, but in her own words, you actually can't really prepare your heart for the end. So she knows it's going to be difficult. She has a wonderful support system, but it'll still be the hardest moment of her life thus far. This brings me to my theory limitations. All of these theories are old and outdated, in my opinion. But thankfully, there are always different interpretations of each theory, keeping them relevant in our world today. My main issue with Erikson's Stage 8 is that 65 persons are no longer considered old. If Mary had her way, she would change the title of this project, which I told her I did just, to make her happy. Most adults can't even retire at age 65, so it's difficult to envision people taking an inventory of their lives when they're not finished working and or learning. In other words, you can't mourn for lost opportunities when there's still plenty of time to take the opportunities to fruition. Perhaps this could be another place to put an emerging level, building up to an old adult.